Well, I'd like to welcome you all. So today is a very, very happy day for us because we have here Daniela. Daniela, we'd like to welcome you all because today we have a very great news here from Brazil, and you have already set up this meetup with Daniela Barbosa, that is the Executive Director from Hyperledger Foundation. So Daniela, be welcome here. So thank you very much for your time here. I know you're very busy and have a lot of appointments. So for us, it's an honor to receive you here. And it's a kind of perpetuation of a tradition that we have all year. We are beginning with the sessions, conversation sessions, meetups, with the director of Hyperledger Foundation. So we have Brian, last year we have you, Daniela. So this day is a special day to receive you here. And even more because we have some great news. I'd like to ask you, Courtney, to tell about it and to introduce himself as a leader of the Brazilian chapter too.
Okay, good night for everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you a lot, Danny, for being here with us. It's a quite special day because we were discussing about community, how increase the interest around Hyperledger, and today our central bank is being one of the most advanced in the world, making a kind of very tough decision to choose just one platform to run the pilot of not only our CBDC efforts, but also part of tokenization efforts, which is a great flag from our central bank in itself. So we are tokenizing our own bonds, meaning our internal treasury bonds on the same platform. And also during this pilot, they're going to test what we call the tokenized deposit, which is the retail version of Brazilian CBDC directly from the banks, also in Hyperledger Besu. So suddenly, after 3 p.m. this afternoon, everyone is kind of totally desperate to learn, to understand what is Hyperledger. And as I have promised to everyone here in Brazil, it was not a kind of a link to the fact that we have the executive director tonight with us. It's just like a great synchronicity, as we say down here in Brazil. And that said, Daniela, I guess you has the biggest stage and the biggest interest from everyone here, not only from banks, but also from industry and commerce and all the sectors. They're trying to understand how to tokenize special stuff like props, carbon titles, and things like that. So be very welcome for us. Also, thank for David for providing all the arrangements. And today it's your talk.
Well, thank you. Obrigado. Eu posso falar português um bocadinho. O meu nome é Daniela Barbosa. Eu sou portuguesa, nasci em Lisboa, mas mudei para os Estados Unidos quando tinha 10 anos e gostava muito de fazer este meetup todo em português e os meus pais estão muito upset que eu não falo o português tão bem. Mas hoje é um dia grande para o Brasil e para o Hyperledger e é um prazer eu estar aqui hoje a falar com vocês. So thank you so much. We have turned on transcription, and I believe you can change perhaps the transcription so that it is in Portuguese. I don't know how good it is, but it is, and I also have shared the deck on the chat. If you want to follow along during the presentation, that would be great. So just as a reminder, all of our Hyperledger meetings, including our regional community meetings, are held under our code of conduct, and all are welcome here. So todos são bem-vindos. And please be respectful of one another. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us or read the Hyperledger code of conduct. So once again, my name is Daniela Barbosa. I'm the Executive Director of the Hyperledger Foundation, and I've been here since 2017 when I joined as Vice President of Worldwide Alliances. And then in 2021, I took over as Executive Director. And today I'll be giving an update on the Hyperledger Foundation, and also talking a bit about the opportunities and the challenges that our community is currently seeing. The great news is that we continue to grow, not only in community members, and for example, just the growth that we've seen in Brazil with the regional chapter, but overall, our projects, our members, the number of contributors and commits that we have across the projects are really impressive. Because we've been at this for the last 7 years, and we continue to redefine what Hyperledger is. And I hope that today I will be able to show you some of those things that we've been working on over the last year. Just last year alone, we welcomed 26 new members into the Hyperledger Foundation. And I want to thank our members worldwide who support the Hyperledger Foundation and help support staff and help support our communities like the regional chapter there in Brazil. So once again, thank you to all our members for supporting the Hyperledger Foundation. As I mentioned, the Hyperledger Foundation, we've been around for 7 years, and today we continue to be a real global organization. We have over 180 meetups worldwide, covering 80 different countries, and numbering close to 80, I think over 86,000 meetup participants already. So for those of you who are joining virtually today, welcome. If you are in Brazil, Brazil estar aqui hoje. And if you are global, because I know many people do join virtual meetups, welcome to this meetup as well. So as we continue to grow, our diverse ecosystem is really comprehensive in the different use cases and the different solutions that users and companies and governments are using Hyperledger technology for. And you can pretty much find Hyperledger use cases across any industry. Just last week, I was in Barcelona at the Mobile Web Congress, which is the largest mobile conference by GMSA. And there were many use cases in the telecom use case that is using Hyperledger technologies. So whether it's telecom or healthcare or finance, climate action, public sector, of course, or digital identity, we're finding that Hyperledger technologies continues to be adopted and really contributed to as well. So for those of you who might not be familiar what the Hyperledger Foundation exactly is, I always like to point out that we are a foundation of blockchain software. We are not a blockchain. We provide community for blockchain software and the tools that companies, government institutions, and even at times individuals will use to build their own blockchain solutions. So we do not run a blockchain as part of Hyperledger. There are other blockchain projects at the Linux Foundation that I, as GM or General Manager for Blockchain and Identity across the Linux Foundation, cover. That are run under separate entities or foundations. But the Hyperledger Foundation, we do not run a blockchain as part of Hyperledger. The global team, we are a global team of volunteers, of developers around the world. And our goal is really to be as diverse and open to any developer and any user who wants to be part of the Hyperledger Foundation. So anyone can join and contribute and even assume a leadership role, like as you see here, the leaders of the Brazil regional chapter. You too can take leadership roles in either the projects, in the special interest groups, or in the regional chapters and meetups as well. And I encourage everybody to reach out to us if you want to be a leader in our community as well. From a principles perspective, across the Linux Foundation, there are hundreds of different open source projects, and we follow the same principles where we are always as transparent and open as possible. The meetups, the meetings, the email lists, anything that we offer is always going to be open for anyone to participate with. And that's just part of not just open source software, but open development as well. And we always are no pay to play. Membership gets you obviously some member benefits, but anyone can contribute and use the software. And that is really the beauty of the Linux Foundation and the projects that we offer here. Today, the Hyperledger Foundation has 16 different projects that are either in graduated or incubating stages. We also have a very active labs, and I'll take you through this and kind of focus in on a couple of things where I see the most opportunities and interest points worldwide. But just very quickly, a brief history of Hyperledger. We've been around since 2016. We actually got launched in December of 2015. And in 2016, we had 4 contributions that year into the Hyperledger project, and it was known as the Hyperledger project at the time, with Hyperledger Fabric being the first code contribution that came from IBM and digital asset, followed by Sawtooth, Explorer, and Aroha following through. Today, we see Hyperledger Fabric continues to be one of the preferred solutions for the top enterprise companies. This is a report from Block Data from October of 2022, where they surveyed the top 100 companies worldwide, and they asked them what distributed ledger technology were they using as part of their implementations. And as you can see here, Fabric dominated with 38% of the companies, of the top 100 companies, and you see these large brands here, saying that they had adopted and are using Hyperledger Fabric. Of course, Ethereum, if you see coming in here second, we know for a fact that some of these use cases are actually Hyperledger Besu, and I'll talk about Besu in a bit because that certainly is a star, and today a star for sure in Brazil. So we'll talk a bit about that. But Fabric, as I said, continues to be a highlight of the Hyperledger Foundation. And just in 2022, we had 11 different releases. The discussions around the future of Fabric 3.0 has already started. And there's a lot of great work that the Fabric maintainer community have put and are contributing to the Hyperledger Fabric project. So once again, an important project that is part of our community. As we moved into 2017, we saw projects that focused on what the blockchain world was going to be like. Hyperledger Indy, which is our identity distributed ledger framework. We also had our first Ethereum EVM. So Hyperledger Burrow was an EVM project that joined in April of 2017. And Hyperledger Quilt, and I'll go through what happened to those projects in a bit, was our first interoperability. So as we think about being networks of networks, why is interoperability important? So very early on, the Hyperledger project and our community already understood the importance of the Ethereum virtual machine, in that case with Hyperledger Burrow, the importance of digital identity with Hyperledger Indy, and the importance of dealing with interoperability, that these were going to be networks of networks with Hyperledger Quilt. Starting in 2018, we had projects like Hyperledger Caliper and Ursa, which was actually pulled out of Hyperledger Indy, which is a cryptographic library. So once again, how the market evolves and the use cases involved, the Hyperledger projects also mature. And today, even the Hyperledger Caliper, recently we launched, there's a blog post with some performance metrics specific to Fabric 2.5. And for those of you who are using Fabric, you might want to take a look at that, because I know there's always questions around scalability that come up specific to Fabric and now Besu as well. And this report is a great example of how one of our projects, Hyperledger Caliper, is being used for the Hyperledger Fabric benchmark performance tests that we have. So please do take a look at that if you're using Hyperledger Fabric. As we continued on, in 2019, some of us started getting gray hair. Others, we started looking at projects, Hyperledger Grid, which is a supply chain special domain project, Aries, which once again was brought out of Indy as a separate project, Transact and Avalon, and very importantly, in 2019, in the summer of 2019, we introduced Hyperledger Besu into the Hyperledger community. We were, since the start, the Hyperledger community understood that there was not going to be one blockchain to fit them, to meet everyone's needs, and that there was really a spectrum of blockchains, right? If you think about on the left side here, a permissionless public, which, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and today many more other crypto projects. And then on the permission private side, and that there's always going to be a need for that spectrum of blockchains between permissionless public and permissioned private. So as you look at the projects and how we've evolved through the years, we've really kept our eye on what is the top technologies that should be part of the Hyperledger Foundation, because they're focused on enterprise use cases. So as I mentioned, in 2019, Hyperledger Besu was contributed to the Hyperledger Foundation. And for those of you who don't know the history of Besu, Besu was a project that got started at Consensus. It was done with the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance specifications for an EVM project, and it was contributed to the Hyperledger Foundation by Consensus. It was a product that they had called Pegasus. And then Pantheon, and Pantheon was contributed to the Hyperledger Foundation, and it became Hyperledger Besu in the summer, like I said, of 2019. And since then, a lot of activity, including the recently news today from the Bank of Brazil, we've seen the adoption of Besu continue to grow in the ecosystem as well. And just last year, the Ethereum Foundation recognized the importance of Hyperledger Besu by including it into the Enterprise Client Incentive Program for the EF. So the Hyperledger Besu, for those of you who do not know, is a Java-based client. It can be run either in the Ethereum public network or as a private permissioned network. And it includes several consensus algorithms, as you see there. And it really is focused on the implementation of the EEA, which is the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance specification. So we'll talk a little bit more about Besu in specifics in a bit. But one of the things, if you've been following the Ethereum mainnet merge last September, the Ethereum modularization, where Ethereum mainnet transitioned to a modular blockchain design, and Hyperledger Besu was very well positioned to be an execution client. So you see here the consensus clients that are running on the Ethereum mainnet, and the execution clients with Hyperledger Besu being one of the selected. And as I said, Hyperledger Besu was selected to be part of the execution client grant. And you can find more information about how that's going to benefit the Hyperledger Besu as an execution client on our website as well. So we're very excited about that. But as we think about the global use cases of the different projects that we have, and kind of where blockchain networks have gone, since we started in 2016, we really are, many of these networks are global networks of networks. And many enterprises need to participate in many different networks. And enterprises and consortiums and different use cases are going to have different needs of which DLT or which framework they choose. So we started very early on, I mentioned Hyperledger Quilt, but we started very early on talking about the global need for interoperability. How do these networks of networks actually work amongst them with each other? What is, how do we address blockchain DLT fragmentation? How do we save app developers from reinventing the wheel, from every time they have to connect into a new network that they have to build new connectors? And how do we lower the risk of adopting distributed ledgers by businesses? Because nobody wants to build the same thing over and over again, but enterprises do want to have the optionality as well. So in 2020, a project was contributed by Accenture called Cactus, and Fujitsu and Accenture were the two primary contributors to that project. And since then, we continue to grow the Cacti project. And today, the main contributors are Accenture, Fujitsu, and IBM. And there's a couple other major contributions that are coming in over the next few weeks or months. And Cacti, if you notice the name change, change. Cactus is one cactus and cacti is multiple cacti. So we changed the name to Cacti because it's really, it also includes a lab called Weaver. That was a contribution by IBM. And now Hyperledger Cacti is our interoperability project that is really addressing those interoperability needs that I mentioned before in the marketplace. As we think about all this, you know, there's lots of little cute logos, but think about what I just talked about. We talked about how we started with one permission distributed ledger and how, as the project matured, we addressed issues of identity. We addressed issues of interoperability. We looked at opportunities with Ethereum virtual machines and the Ethereum mainnet. And really, this is how enterprise use cases of blockchain continue to mature. In 2021, when I took over as executive director, we also rebranded the Hyperledger project into a foundation because we are now an umbrella of multiple projects within the Hyperledger community. In 2021, we also welcomed two new projects, Hyperledger Firefly and Hyperledger Besu. And as you think about those two projects, it really is about the adoption of these technologies once again. How do we make it easy for enterprises, for government institutions to leverage the tools that we have within our umbrella? So Hyperledger Firefly is one of the first open source supernodes, and it's really a complete stack for enterprises to build and scale secure Web3 applications with the optionality of really supporting multiple blockchains. So as you can see here, they support Hyperledger Fabric, Besu, Quorum, R3's Corda, as well as many of the public chains. So once again, enterprises and developers want the optionality to choose the different DLTs. And we've always felt that giving that optionality and creating that enterprise-grade view into these different tools was going to benefit the community. With Firefly, for those of you who don't know, it really is to help eliminate the custom coding and plumbing, because more and more implementations are being built upon, and you don't want to have to build the same thing over and over again. So Firefly is one of these tools, once again, that as adoption continues to increase, that we're able to have more people on board using blockchain technologies a bit easier. So as we think about 2022 that we just finished a couple of months ago, we did have two new projects, Hyperledger Solang, which is a Solidity compiler, once again, tied into Substrate and the Ethereum ecosystem with Solidity contracts, and AnonCreds, which was also pulled from Hyperledger Indy, which is the verifiable credentials, anonymous credentials project that we now have that is really, we think, going to be really core to things like digital wallets in the future worldwide. A couple of things that the Hyperledger community has been focused on is really offering project services. Many of you work for enterprises or government agencies, and you want to make sure that these projects are mature, that they have a life cycle, and our staff really spends a lot of time making sure that we're offering these projects, services, and tools to help support their needs. So we just recently did a post around our project services, and it is really a way that many of the code projects that are coming in to Hyperledger, and hopefully we'll have new ones in 2023 as well, and they understand that here we're really focused on building those enterprise communities of code projects as well. So if you haven't taken a look at our blog and read that project, that is good. But part of growing our community, finding the right code projects that meet enterprise needs, is also pruning inactive projects. So we have our team, David Boswell, leading our community architects, that works with our maintainers and our technical oversight committee to make sure that the project life cycles and the projects themselves are meeting the needs of the community. So we have pruned some inactive projects, as you've seen here, and you'll see these coming and going based on the needs of the community. And we do have a post on this coming up soon on our blog as well. So today, once again, we have 16 different projects. We categorize them as graduated projects and as incubated projects. And as I mentioned, we have a life cycle that is published that you can see, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have, as well as a very healthy Hyperledger Labs ecosystem that helps code developers bring their code into the Hyperledger Foundation, build a community, and then graduate into incubating and then graduated projects. So for example, Hyperledger Cacti, Hyperledger Solang, these two projects, and Hyperledger Bevel as well, came in through labs, built a community, and now are incubating projects. So it's a really great way to bring code into the projects, into the Hyperledger, and then mature into graduated projects as well. And each project level gets different resources. For example, if you're a graduated project, you're going to have security audits and additional resources. And everything is available, obviously, on the wiki that you can read it. So just give you a very, very quick overview. So you can see we've been very, very busy over the last 7 years. So let's talk a bit about some of the challenges that our community sees in the marketplace and some of the opportunities as well. So the first one, when I first started working at the Hyperledger Foundation, I was working for Brian Bellendorf, who was the executive director at the time, and we had a slide that we would start every conversation with because it needed to be educated and we needed to educate the market. And it basically said, blockchain does not equal Bitcoin. Today, I use blockchain does not equal crypto because there is more than Bitcoin out there. Obviously, there's Ethereum and there's so many other coins out there. But it's really important to make sure that we educate the market, and especially in times like this, where the market conditions, I think, are actually an opportunity for Hyperledger, but the crypto news does deter from what we're building. So I still very often have to explain whether I'm talking to the media, for example, mainstream media publications, or very large enterprises, that blockchain does not equal crypto. There's a lot of opportunities on both the permissioned and in the public blockchain, but it is not the same thing. Crypto, Bitcoin, for example, is just a killer app that's built using blockchain technology. So we do spend a lot of time still educating the market there. And as I said, and we published in the Linux Foundation annual report, we do think that what happened in 2022 with the crypto market does sharpen what I call the line between the perceived value of speculative headline-grabbing cryptocurrencies and the actual value of enterprise-grade technologies and the applications that they power. And it's the Hyperledger Foundation's responsibility and our job to educate the market on that, and we ask your help as well. So a couple of things. This is toilet paper. ETH Denver is a conference that happened last week that is in the Ethereum ecosystem in Denver, Colorado, here in the United States. And these pictures have been going around. This is a roll of toilet paper with Sam SPF's face on it. But let's keep in mind, and once again, I explain this to media journalists all the time, is fraud and bad business practices are not unique to the blockchain industry. So what we saw with FTX had nothing to do with technology. It had nothing to do with blockchain. And the same thing with a lot of the fails it really is not at all indicative of what's happening in the blockchain industry. There's also regulation concerns, and regulation concerns. This is a screenshot from just the last few days where worldwide governments are looking to put regulations and crypto regulation into place. We are in wait and see. We listen to what's happening, but we do see that regulation concerns on crypto does and can slow down enterprise blockchain projects, right? We have large companies that want to say, well, we're just going to wait and see how these things roll out before we do implementations. So regulation concerns continue to be challenges, but once again, because we are the technology is really not tied into the crypto market per se, it shouldn't really be a bigger challenge. So what's Hyperledger doing about this? we are continuously investing and contributing to make sure that the use cases that are out there building with Hyperledger technologies can be seen. Just at the World Economic Forum in Davos, one of the panels was, let's talk about blockchain case studies, right? What are the implementation use cases? Today, we now have over 30 case studies that are already available via our website. And these are case studies really across various industries. We produce bi-monthly webinars of production projects, and these are our members are coming and talking and sharing their use cases. And we spend a lot of time making sure that the people who are building using Hyperledger technology, who are putting these things into production, have an opportunity to tell their story. So we're really contributing, hopefully, to the story that blockchain is active and it's being adopted across the enterprise worldwide. Another challenge that I think we continuously have is the need for blockchain developer talent. Today, the demand is across all industries and really all types of employees, from developers to business leaders as well. So a couple of things that we're doing is we're investing and contributing and making sure that the courses that we offer are available. So, for example, we have had over 200,000 students who've been educated through our courses, our edX courses, and we currently have 6 online self-paced courses on edX, and you can get a certificate as well for a fee through the edX platform. And we recently just updated the blockchain, understanding its uses and implications. So many of you here on the phone are active Hyperledger users or developers, but if you have people in your community, in the company that you work for, in your partners, who maybe need a better understanding of what blockchain is and what its uses and implications, I would highly recommend this course that was just updated for 2022. And it really helps people understand what blockchain is and what the implications are. And I would say that everybody, regardless of their job, their position, could benefit from these types of courses. We also just launched a new one at the end of last year, a course around self-sovereign identity. So decentralized identity or self-sovereign identity, depending on how you're using those terms. So the Getting Started course is now available. And once again, we do really believe that is an important educational element for both business and technical users and understanding digital identity in the new world. And last but not least, we continue to invest in things like certification. And we do have our new Hyperledger Fabric certification course that is coming in the spring of this year. And anyone can take the course and be a certified developer in Hyperledger Fabric. So that'll be coming in hopefully early spring of this year as well. A couple other things that we're doing from an investment perspective to address the challenges of talent is we do a lot of in-depth technical events. So, for example, workshops are available for free worldwide. We have 2 upcoming workshops that our community has put together, one on Firefly and one on April 25th around central bank digital currencies from conception to reality with Hyperledger technologies. So these are things that our community have asked for, and we work with our members and our community contributors to put these kind of workshops together. And if you missed any of these from last year, we did workshops and all the recordings are available around Cacti, Aries, Besu, on how to participate in the Ethereum network for staking data and development. So on the public side of Besu as well, how to operate and extend the Besu Ethereum client from a permission perspective, how to build your own NFT with Hyperledger Fabric, and an Hyperledger Indie technical deep dive as well. If you have ideas of other workshops that we should do, put them in the chat, and David Boswell probably will pick them up, because we're always looking for ideas of, we're doing this for you. This is part of educating the market. What kind of resources can we invest in and can we provide to the community as well? A couple of things that we do a lot of investment in from an education perspective and really market awareness is we put a lot of this content on Hyperledger. Our YouTube channel now has over 1.7 million views. This meetup right now is going to be on YouTube, so anyone can watch it. But this is really important. If you are trying to explain to somebody what Hyperledger is, or a specific project, or a specific use case or production, go to the YouTube channel. There's probably something there that can educate you and can educate the folks that you're working with as well. So it's a great resource. We put a lot of time and effort into making sure that YouTube is a resource for those challenges of getting people educated. So let's talk a bit about some of the opportunities. What are some key opportunities that I see as part of the Hyperledger community in 2023? So I picked out 4. I could go on for hours and hours about all the different things that our community is building. And it's really fascinating for us. Every day I wake up in the morning and I find a new use case. I find some person around the world that is using Hyperledger technology in one way or another. Sometimes it's in the news, sometimes it's in chat. This morning I woke up, early morning I saw the Bank of Brazil story. So like these are just, this is the best part of my job, I like to say, is that I get to find these things. So I picked out 4 different opportunities. One is tokenization. The other is digital identity. The third, something I'm very passionate about, is circular economy from a climate perspective. And the last but not least, and something that we're seeing huge strides in, is national and regional government initiatives that we will talk about in a second. So a couple of things. On the tokenization side, we're continuously seeing things like hybrid use cases around tokenization. This example and all of these slides are, and David, if you can put them into the chat again, are available for you to reuse and to obviously click through into all the different case studies and examples. This example is with DL Piper, and DL Piper has built a digital asset engine called Toko that is really addressing the need of tokenization across the market. And this is a great use case. It uses Hyperledger Fabric, and it also uses Hyperledger Hedera, the public Hedera blockchain, in order to stake these assets and establish liquidity as well. So you can follow that link for some additional information. For those of you who do not know DL Piper, it is one of the world's largest law firms that operates in 40 different countries. They've been working this Toko project for about over 2.5 years, close to 3 years. And it's really at the requirements of their customers who are looking to tokenize real world assets and create liquidity on those real world assets as well. So it's a great use case and very interesting to take a look at. Another use case that I would point to is based out of Europe and primarily looking to build infrastructure, another Hyperledger Besu use case called Finality. And what they're doing is collateral assets are tokenized and pooled among the nodes. And right now there are, I think, 17 major institutions, as you see here, that are already participating in the Finality network. And it's quite interesting to see the kind of work and participation. And once again, they were actually very early adopters of Hyperledger Besu. The Finality network has been in operations and production for, I think, 1.5 years, but even longer in regards to development as well. Another Hyperledger Besu use case that I love to point out is specific to NFTs. So the Palm network, it uses Hyperledger Besu as a sidechain. And it's optimized using Besu, and then the NFTs are anchored or bridged on the Ethereum mainnet. For those of you who keep track of the NFT ecosystem, Palm is actually the network behind the DC Comics. So the DC Comics, which is right here in the back house, NFT project, and also Damien Hirst, where last year Damien Hirst created 10,000 pieces of art. He cut off one large piece of art into 10,000 different pieces, and then he auctioned out this empty, and everybody got a chance to buy a piece, 10,000 pieces. And at the end of 1 year, you had to make a choice, and it was all minted on the Palm network that once again uses Besu. And at the end of the year, if you bought one of these pieces, you had to make a choice. Did you want to burn the physical art piece, which is the one that he's holding there, or did you want to burn your digital NFT? You couldn't keep one. You had to burn one or keep the other. So it was an interesting experiment for sure. But I always like to point to it because it uses Hyperledger Besu and it's an NFT project, but it really is an understanding of how art, specifically in the NFT space, is going to continue to evolve in the space as well. So it's a great project. And for those of you who don't know Palm, they have many other very large brand NFT projects on them as well. All right, so other opportunities that we see specifically around digital identity. If you recall, in 2017, we started Hyperledger with Hyperledger Indy and now have Aries and Anon Creds. And if you look at the digital identity space, our investment and our resources in the digital identity space have really paid off. And we're seeing use cases around the world, from the government of British Columbia to states like the government of Rhode Island and California, as well as ID Union out of Germany, that are using these technologies to build digital infrastructure for identity, not only of people, but also of things as well. So ID Union works a lot on the manufacturing side. So really great use cases. And if you follow the blog there, you can see a lot of those details. And just recently, the government of British Columbia actually launched a digital wallet. The government of British Columbia is contributing to Hyperledger Indy and Aries. They're one of those government institutions that actually contribute code. They have maintainers that are a part of the Hyperledger Foundation. And they just launched a digital wallet, which is the first open source code wallet by a government entity on the Apple Store. So you can take a look at it there. And now, the purpose is really to secure digital credentials for licenses and memberships and permits, and really a great way use case around digital identity and using the Hyperledger technologies. From a circular perspective, I also, circular economy is something that I think is important as you think about sustainability and tracking. Just recently, last year, the European Union passed legislation around electronic vehicle batteries and having to have a battery passport. And Circular is one of those companies that has a platform that really helps track the minerals that go into building electronic vehicle batteries. And as we start seeing regulators more and more regulating these kind of requirements around minerals, you're going to start seeing that blockchain becomes a part of those use cases. So you can watch that use case there, and it's a great use case around it. So let's talk more about governments and government use cases. I swear I had these slides in before I heard the news about Brazil this morning. But CBDC projects and experiments around the world continue. As of today, 105 countries, which represent about 95% of the global GDP, are exploring CBDCs and have CBDCs in different stages. And as you can see here, we constantly see Hyperledger Fabric and Hyperledger Besu being the two that are selected either from a production perspective or experimentations as well, which is great to see. We also have Project Bakan out of Cambodia, which is running a retail CBDC with Hyperledger Eroha, and they have a couple other projects that Eroha is working in Asia Pacific as well. Last year, we did an ebook specifically around central bank digital currencies. And guess what? If you want to see details on the different countries and what they're using, you can download it in English and Japanese as well. And there's a Chinese version for those who might speak Chinese. But now we need to update it, because as of today, we understand that the Banco Central do Brazil has chosen Hyperledger Besu as their platform for the pilot. So we're very excited about that. And I don't know if somebody's on the line that can address the selection process. We can, when I'm done here, we can go back to that. I did listen to the presentation earlier, and it was great to see the explanation of why Hyperledger Besu was selected, as it is, enterprise grade, that it's supported by the Hyperledger community, that is being used with other CBDC projects, and it has obviously a great community behind it as well. So congratulations to Brazil for the selection and for the news. And I will listen to the rest of the video. I just very quickly moved to the 29-minute front earlier today to find a bit more about this announcement. Another use case, once again, focused with Hyperledger Besu. And this is something that we're seeing also in Europe with the European blockchain infrastructure. It is also Hyperledger Besu implementation. LACchain uses Hyperledger Besu as a public permission network, which is called LACnet. And this is a partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank that just celebrated their 1-year anniversary last week. And it's a great example of how the private sector and the public sector can work together to build infrastructure that is blockchain based for communities, in this case in Latin America and the Caribbean. And in Europe, we're seeing the same, as I mentioned, with the European blockchain infrastructure, EPSI. That also selected Hyperledger Besu. So as you think about questions around Hyperledger from a scalability perspective, we are having a lot of these ecosystems that are now building with Besu coming together to address the requirements that are needed with Besu. We actually have a workshop that we are doing in 2 weeks' time in New York City for banking and financial services users around Hyperledger Besu to address some of the needs and the requirements that the community is going to need. So please keep an eye on that. We'll be providing more details and obviously, making sure that we get feedback from those in Brazil that are also using and investigating Hyperledger Besu as a client. So I let myself 10 minutes for questions. I see chat is pretty active, so hopefully somebody's been answering those chats. But I am happy to take any questions that we might have.
Danny, one of the biggest questions, or one of the first ones, is around the selection process around the central bank. The question about how was the decision, if we talked with them in a global way. I know we've talked with them down here in Brazil, but I think they want to hear some words from you, from the global perspective.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about open source is that very often we're not involved. As I mentioned, we do have a lot of conversations with central banks. We also work with authorities like the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and we participated in their CBDC challenge last year. The BIS, which is the Bank of International Settlements, which is basically the bank of the CBDC of the central banks. And we do a lot of conversations with these central banks worldwide. Hyperledger Foundation is not part of, we do not provide services. So when these type of selections come forward, we, if asked, we do provide information and we connect central banks to developers, to documentation, to maintainers. If there's questions that are outstanding, we make sure that we can get a maintainer within the community to address. But we are not part of the selection process. I found out this morning, just like the rest of you did. that Brazil had selected Besu for this pilot.
Excellent.
I'd like to ask you, maybe David or Daniela, if you could stop the presentation just to see everybody here, and in mostly Daniela.
Yeah. Yeah, please feel free to turn on your camera, and if you want to ask a question.
Yes.
Don't be shy.
I think on this kind of a very special day, it's quite important that we reinforce the work of our predecessors. So I'm just seeing Marcos here. I'm not seeing, no, I'm not seeing the others. But before us, Marco has done a terrific job in the last 2 years, educating people, explaining what is Hyperledger, doing demonstrations across the government and things like that. So it's quite good that we can kind of continue the great work the predecessors has made, and being very proud of being the successor of Marcos and Renato that came before us. Another question, which is a kind of a challenge around us, is about the development support. As usual, not only for Hyperledger projects, but also for the blockchain projects at all. We are looking for some answers around the development, the certification, and how can we provide more infrastructure around that. So if you can say some words about that, this is the questions in the chat.
Sure. So I addressed a bit about, training and certification that we have. Like I mentioned, we will have the new Hyperledger Fabric certification coming up in the spring, so that developers can be certified on Fabric. Your next question is going to be, what about Besu? It's on the list of things that we need to address as well. There is courses available via edX for Besu, and then there's workshops that we do. And one of the things that when we think about making an investment in doing certification courses, because it does take a long time and it is a long cycle to do it, is that the project themselves have to be at a state, right, that it makes sense to write certification, because otherwise, once you're finished with the certification tests, you have to redo them again, right? So that's kind of how we space out our certification and our requirements that we have. In regards to how does an organization that needs assistance, right, that needs a service provider, get support, there's a couple of things. One is Hyperledger does have our Hyperledger Certified Service Provider program. And David, if you can grab that link and put it into the chat, that'd be great. So in 2017, we started our Hyperledger Certified Fabric course. And shortly after, we launched our HCSPs, which are Certified Service Providers for Fabric. And we have, I can't remember what the exact number is, a couple of companies worldwide who are certified to provide Fabric services. But we know that the ecosystem supporting Fabric, Besu, Indy is much greater. So on our website, we also have our Hyperledger vendor directory. And David's my link man today. He'll put the link on there. The vendor directory is, these are just member companies. So these are companies that are supporting the Hyperledger Foundation member ecosystem, but there are hundreds, or I might say thousands of other companies worldwide that support technologies. And I know there's quite a few excellent firms in Brazil that I have talked to that are supporting Hyperledger technologies as well.
We have a question from Brett Carpenter. So if you can speak, Brett.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, good to see you. This is a must attend. This is the most important thing I feel for the future of technology is identity. And so in some of my special interest group calls with the telecom, I've been made aware of the fact that there's not a lot of papers or Indy. Is there anything I can get with Indy? Because that's going to be my project. I'm going to be working with Hyperledger Indy with unique identifiers. Those are keys to the smart city. You know, as we roll out the smart city,
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so there's a lot of use cases and case studies, and remember, Indy, you know, since 2017, as I showed, has really matured and evolved how the code components within Indy itself. So here's what I'll do, Brett. I'm going to spend some time. I'll write up a LinkedIn post around specifically digital identity projects and where to get more information, and I'll post it on LinkedIn. And your job, Brett, is to go find that. I'll tag you, and then it'll, you know, everybody can have access to it.
Let me just talk a little bit about it. Here in Brazil, we do have some great projects with DID, especially with one of the Hyperledger service providers, CPQD, that does have a project called CPQD ID that's based on Hyperledger Aries and Hyperledger Indy as well. I suggest you can search a little bit for it. Yes.
When we're talking about searching, I mean, okay, is it
Here,
Daniela?
I'm going to put it, it was one of the ones that I would add, and I just put it in there. They actually did a presentation on the Hyperledger Global Forum, and you can see those as well.
Okay.
And there's a demo, DIT IoT demo.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent.
There was a question from YouTube. I just posted in the Zoom chat if we have time for one more.
Okay.
I think.
What was the question, David?
What about assurance certifications of the specific frameworks?
Okay, so the conformance type of certifications. So we have discussed this, and once again, it's about the maturity of the projects. And we have discussed this, and I know that specifically in certain regions like Asia Pacific, there is a big push for having, you know, conformance of these projects. So it's definitely something that is on our radar.
I see some quite interesting names here. In my screen is André Portillo from B2D Pactual. Also, we have Tota, which is the product manager from Mercado Bitcoin, one of our Coinbase version, Fabricio, and also Reinaldo Rabelo that came from the traditional TradFi. Any questions, people? No question.
Yeah, no, just thank you for the presentation, and well, very optimistic for we will have to build here. Just that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andre. I also would like to mention that here with us is Samuel Venzi. He's a Brazilian that's helping to produce the next certification for Hyperledger Fabric.
Oh.
He's from our team.
Excellent. Well, Venzi, obrigado por seu trabalho. I know, the community helps with the certification tests. So sounds to me like Venzi is one of our volunteers. So thank you.
Yeah.
Obrigado.
Yeah, I thank you guys for accepting the community like you do always. Thank you.
We couldn't do it without you.
I have a question here about when and where will be the next global forum?
A great question. Right now, we are planning on having Hyperledger Global Forum be at the end of Q1, so at the early spring of 2024.
And another question here is about if you
and
want to have
hold one comment before. Hold on, because I can't make guarantees, but one of the places that I put on the list is to do global forum. I know many of you chewed on my ear in Dublin, so can't guarantee you, but news like what we heard today kind of helps. So it is on the list. We have different locations that we're looking at, and I did put Brazil on the list.
Excellent, excellent.
You all be very welcome here. Great. I have a question here from some teachers and professors from academic environment. They asked us about if Hyperledger Foundation has an incentive program to help institutions and students go deeper in Hyperledger blockchain ecosystem.
David, do you want to take that one on kind of how we can help on the academic side?
Sure. So let me make sure I heard the question correctly. How do you help people get more involved? How do you help students get more involved?
Yep.
Let me drop one link. Well, one thing, and the timing works out really well, we do have an annual mentorship program. This is not only for students, but we do encourage students to apply. This is an opportunity for somebody who wants to get connected to a mentor, to somebody who is an expert on a given project, a maintainer, for example, on a given project, and have an extended 6-month relationship to work with that mentor. That person would be able to help them go through the learning curve so that they have all the tools and the knowledge and expertise they need to be successful in a project. And this is something we do every year, the paid mentorship program. We are going to be accepting applications for mentees very soon. We are in the process right now of getting project proposals from different maintainers and other people in the community who want to be mentors. And that process is going to wrap up next week. And as soon as that is done, we will then switch and start having people apply to be mentees. So that certainly is something that people should take a look at if they're interested in that opportunity. There's a link there, again, that I just put in the Zoom chat. You can look through if you want to see examples of past years, like what sorts of projects come in, all that information is there. And if you want to see about how to apply for this year's program, that will be there as well. So that's certainly something to take a look at. And then I think just generally speaking, getting involved in the community is great experience for a student. You have the opportunity to get real world experience that you can put on your resume when you may graduate from college or university and say, hey, look, I've done this thing. And that could be all sorts of things. It could be coding, it could be, helping organize activities. And that's real world experience, right? That you get to put on your resume when you, as a student, graduate and are looking for jobs. So I think just participating in open source communities in general, great opportunity for students. And then we do have specific opportunities like the mentorship program as well.
Yeah, related to learning and opportunities, we just have a person from Venasback. Venasback is a syndicate from the central bank. It's not the central bank, it's a syndicate. It's a kind of NGO from central bank employees. And we are doing several kind of side events and actions around the CBDC effort. So we have one thing called Lift Learning. And I was just talking with Rodrigo. We can support several trainings, Rodrigo, as known as also my almost brother. It's our internal joke here. But we're just talking about putting Hyperledger on this Lift Learning effort. Joselito and me, we were in an event in São Paulo last week, just talking about that. And the second point is, if we make the event in Brazil, we can have support from Venasback and also from AB Crypto. I can guarantee you that. So we have great news to bring the event down here.
That's great. Yeah, we're happy to support those kind of resources.
I have a question here. So some people I want to know when you, Daniela, and you, David, will come to Brazil. So maybe next global forum. It was a real question we had here.
Yeah, if there is events, if there's large blockchain events, or we did a boot camp in Brazil in 2018. I think it was 2018, 2019, maybe 2019.
Before the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, before the pandemic. So we haven't been down there in a while. So we should definitely take a look. Right now, we are organizing developer events in Japan, and then in India at the end of the year. But yeah, we're happy to figure out, if
there is one special event in April 25 around the CBDC. It's again built by Rodrigo. We are doing two biggest events, one in April, which is more academic and just talk about technology. Another one in May also about what is this CBDC week, and maybe just some details later with you guys when you come down.
Okay. If April seems a little bit short, and we're going to be at Consensus in April as well, and I have some other travel, but and in May, yeah, if you can send the details, we'll take a look and see if it makes sense.
Excellent.
Depois posso praticar o meu português.
É um português quase que a alfacinha, mas é um português compreensível aqui no Brasil. A minha família também é de Portugal, então temos alguma similaridade de sotaques.
Não sabe.
Muito bonita sua pronúncia. Your accent is pretty nice.
É o português do rei.
Português do rei.
Nice. We have a lot of questions here, Daniela. So we have a question about regulation. We have a question, some legal questions, and I take note of everything here in the Zoom chat, over Discord and over WhatsApp group. So I take note of everything. So I will compile everything. I will check it again, and I will send you, because I think it's getting later, and I don't know if you can stay with us for so long.
Yep. I can stay for a little, for if there's any other questions that you want to ask in voice, and then I would be happy to answer them in WhatsApp or in Discord. What does the community use?
Yes.
So we have a question here. What can we do to make regulation robust enough to protect citizens and users, but effective enough not to limit innovation in blockchain? It's a general question about regulation.
Yeah. And this is why I put regulation as being one of the challenges, right? Because it does slow down innovation, because people, companies specifically are, wait and see, right, to do so. But I think that regulation actually also enables innovation. So just last week, the Biden administration here in the United States passed some executive orders specifically around digital identity. And I think that's going to really enable some of the projects that our communities have been working on for many years to come forth. So we're actually working on putting together a blog post to address the executive orders that Biden has put out, specific around digital identity and privacy from a regulation perspective. So I can't say I'm a big advocate of regulation. I do not believe that regulation by enforcement, which we're seeing right now in the US, specifically in the crypto space, is the right approach, right? You need to have regulation that has clarity. But in order to, protect consumers, and to protect individuals, especially when we're talking about, their digital identity, it is because, regulation is going to have to be a requirement that we go forward. At Hyperledger Foundation and across the LF, we do not lobby, and we do not participate in those kinds of lobbying type from a regulation perspective. What we do is we educate, and we educate, both policymakers as well as the companies that need to, work within the regulatory space. But Guillermo, if you have some comments, I know perhaps you have some ideas specifically in Latin America that you want to share. I noticed that was your question.
I have one question. Do you have any?
Hold on, Brett. Guillermo, do you want to answer that question? Do you want to? Did he leave? Did he leave? Guillermo
if-
Diaz. Oh,
with us anymore.
There, he just, I guess he's muted.
Yep. I think he's not listening to us anymore.
okay. Okay, maybe he dropped off.
So Brett has a question, Brett.
Mhm.
Brett Kerr?
So do we have any support if, like, let's say we here in Michigan want to get involved in lobbying? Michigan, do we have any way to plug into a support or no?
We don't do any lobbying in the US or worldwide.
But I mean, as far as support would go, would have something to do with, a framework of some ideas of policy framework, anything.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so I'll put the link, Brett, since you're US based, in the chat, so you can take a look at what the executive order lists out.
Okay.
And like I said, there should be a blog post either this week or early next week, specifically around digital identity opportunities there. And it's section 4.5. Let me put this on the chat.
Here in Brazil, we recently have the a law we established here in our system. I don't know if Courtney or anyone else would like to talk about it.
Yeah, you mean the crypto law that was approved in December? I'm not a lawyer, but I'm very interested in the business models around regulatory stuff. Again, I need to call Rodrigo, and he's a lawyer here. And Ricardo Paixão that we have here, he's the head of innovation in Central Bank. And again, he's a lawyer. He loves Shakespeare, and he's a nerd because he was in several DevCons with me since 2017. And he's the proper lawyer. But we have a law in December, which is we call our crypto kind of a mark. We are still waiting for some presidential order that's going to be published soon. We have MiCA in Europe that is settled. We have a great conversation with Hong Kong and Singapore that also are set up very interesting models on that. But if we get MiCA and the recent developments in US, I think Professor Gensler has been kind of right saying, okay, we have security and that's it. So we don't need a new law. Europe with MiCA has a long path ahead, but it's starting in April. So we have kind of a date to think about it. And Brazil, probably we are going to have everything settled in June because we have the law, we're going to have this presidential order and more kind of, as we call, infra-legal infrastructure, which is central bank and our SEC like. But it's around the crypto space and the security space. Also, we have other legislations around ID. I don't know if Maria Teresa, which is here from CPKD, she can talk anything about that, but probably you're going to have some reforms around. But the lawyer is Ricardo Paixão, and a great friend. And if you want to say something, Professor Ricardo.
Say something about what? About the law? The 14?
Yeah, what the perspectives about legislations worldwide. Since, for instance, we've talked several times about UK, how do you think your perspectives?
I took part because I work in Congress, so I was in the committee that designed the law. And it's very circumscribed because this law here in Brazil, it focuses on exchanges. And it's meant on how some entity, it could be the central bank, it could be the Brazilian SEC, will regulate crypto exchanges. So it's very narrow focused. It says nothing about stable coins and any other stuff. So it's a pretty focused law, but still there's something hanging and uncertainty, which is the fact that since that was, in terms of Brazilian legislation, this thing, modification of the structure of the government should start from the government itself. So, I mean, the Congress could not start legislation like this. And in order to avoid the law being struck down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional, so they use the device. The device is this as Courtney says, like an executive order,
Mhm.
a decree, in which the government must edit such executive order, nominating a regulator to fulfill whatever the law says. So although a lot of people said this decree, this executive order is coming anytime. I mean, it could come like in the next few days. I'm still. This is still. It makes the horizon for the law a little cloudy, because it's a huge uncertainty, in my point of view. Because I mean, the government. I don't know how many people here are following the situation in Brazil, but there is some. Let's say, problems in the communication between the central bank and the government, because the central bank, the governor is from the past government, and the new administration has other priorities. So people are kind of fighting over many issues. So I mean, it's not like the ideal situation for a joint collaboration in terms of the government and the central bank. Noting here that I'm slightly separated the central bank from the government because of the fact that it comes from the previous administration, but it's of course it's everything one government. But it's like it's a focus law just on crypto exchanges. It depends on this executive order to attain legal value, the law itself, and nobody exactly knows what's going to come in this decree. This during the movimentation in the legislative houses, they removed certain issues in the law, for instance, like to segregate the assets of the exchange from the customers, like a usual bank does. But for instance, like if the central bank is nominated, if this executive order is edited at any time and the central bank is nominated, probably the central bank will put this back, because they have a very large freedom in order to how they regulate things under the law. But I don't know if it was confusing, but because the Brazilian reality is a bit confusing.
It's confusing everywhere. And that was, that's why, I put in as a challenge, right? Because if you think about, many, the majority of the Hyperledger technology use cases outside of CBDCs and digital identity projects, are not, they do get slowed down because people are concerned about where regulation's going, but it's confusing everywhere. And, if you think about the global nature of digital currencies and digital money, it becomes even more confusing. And it's going to be, it's going to be very interesting for us over the next few years. And, these are sovereign nations, right, that want to have control of their sovereign money. And yet, our digital ecosystem, as, digital nomads, we move from country to country and we do commerce everywhere. It's going to be very interesting to watch.
And let me take the opportunity here to congratulate you guys for the trust of the central bank. It was like it was not a light issue. Congratulations. I know how these things work, and it was a very tough choice for the people involved. So congratulations.
Well, it's through the community. It's to the Hyperledger Besu, the maintainers, the contributors, and everybody here on the phone. Many of you I know have been advocating Hyperledger Besu over the last 2-3 years, and it's fantastic to see. So, but thank you. I agree. It's one of many. And you'll start seeing, and with the backing of Europe and other infrastructure players, that what's going to happen now is that we'll continue getting not only contributors and maintainers to Hyperledger Besu, but more and more service providers, right? Companies that become experts and become, resources for not only government, but private sector who want to implement Hyperledger Besu. And this is kind of why Consensus in 2019 brought that code base to the Hyperledger Foundation.
Great.
Excellent.
But thank you. Yeah. Okay. I can talk all day. No. If anybody ever wants to either contact David or myself or anybody on the team, please reach out. We're always happy, we have limited amount of time, but we're always happy to do a consultation and to help you, more importantly, help guide you how to get involved in the community and kind of who to talk to as well. Happy to support any of the, any of the things that you might be working on. And if we can't help, we can certainly point you in the right direction to where it can be. And then one last thing. I'm just going to put a link here. As I mentioned, we are doing a workshop in New York City, March 20th and 21st for banking and financial services. I'm trying to see if we can also do some virtual, some of that virtual content. We'll have workshops. If you know anybody who's interested in going, let's see here. Let me just find this. All right. Where's my emails loading? Hold on.
Meanwhile, we are already kind of betting that the next global meeting is going to be in Brazil somewhere in 2024.
We'll see. It's on the list. Está na lista. All right. All right. Okay, here you go. I'm going to put it into the chat. Oops. So in person, New York City, March 20th and 21st.
Okay.
And once we know what kind of virtual access, we'll let everybody know as well. But right now it's just in person. And the reason is because many banking and financial services companies, as you can imagine, are using Hyperledger Besu. So we're getting the community together there. And it sounds like maybe we should do one for central banks.
And the bankers also, because the decisions around CBDC, but also we have the deposits and the delivery versus payment between deposits and tokenized assets. So it's going to be a quite interesting year. The next 2 years are going to be quite interesting for us down here.
All right. Bom, muito obrigado por vosso tempo e é prazer falar com vocês sempre. And I will be back and I have my flag.
Just hold a little bit. We need to take a print screen of that. Okay.
That's easy.
Great. Now we have the print.
E por causa que os meus pais também tenho portuguesa.
Great.
Ok, muito obrigada a toda a gente.
Daniela, so thank you very much for your time here. It's a precious time, and with well, I'm speechless. So thank you very much. Thank you, David, for all your support. Always, you're very nice with this. Currently, thank you, and thank you for all that stay here. So at this time, I'm gonna share with you, everybody, my contacts here, so you can send me an email or reach me out on Discord or WhatsApp. And I would like just a few instances to ask you to participate in our community channels. Over Discord, we have Brazil Chapter channel, we have a community on WhatsApp, and we have a wiki. We are updating this with this, and then we have a lot of videos in a YouTube channel, Brazil Chapter channel from Hyperledger Foundation. And you can find us and you can participate. And you have a volunteer here, Paulo Simões, is preparing us a survey just to ask you all about what are your interests, what your experience, what your objectives here facilitating our community. So I wanted to ask you all to answer our survey, and we're gonna share with you on next days over our network channels. So again, Daniela, thank you very much for your time. And I promise you all, I will share you. I saw Magno already share the links and all the material here in our WhatsApp community group, and you get everything here and share with you all guys. So thank you again. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you,
Obrigada.
David. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you all.
Tchau, boa noite a todos.
Boa noite, Daniela.
Hoje.
Obrigado,
Thank
muito
you very
obrigado.
much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you again soon.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.